Hey, 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 what do you say, Frankmeisters? Good evening. Look who I got with me again, guys. Two of my favorite ladies. Miss Susan Tricks, how are you?
Good. How are you? Long time
Uh,
no see. Just sat me to
yeah,
work.
exhausted. Kristin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm
Good.
exhausted.
Kristen, I
Today
wish we
was
were here
just, I
together in
mean,
court.
I was
I
bored.
know. I do too. I wish I was with you guys. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, it was a
I'm there
boring
in
morning.
spirit.
It was
Well,
a,
you bring up a good point, Frank, because during this, and if people remember jury selection, which feels like a year ago, um, when Nick asked the potential jurors, like, how many of you watch CSI? And they raised their hand and then said, how many of you believe you have to have DNA to solve a crime? But I feel like sometimes people think that courtroom dramas that they've seen are like that. But there are days that lag on, and, there's certain witnesses who are on the stand for several hours.
uh,
I could think of the ballistic expert for the state, who was excellent, by the way, but on there for 6 hours. So there are days where there are lulls. But today, even though sometimes a lot of the lingo goes over my head, I felt like it was a big win for the
you were
state.
writing your ass off today.
Oh, I was writing notes.
I know it. Terry kept looking back because she would hear your Sharpie on your paper, and I'm like, yep,
Oh,
she's writing her ass off.
I'm probably bothering so many people. I got to use a pen. But you know why? So last night I called my dad, who I speak about often, who's an attorney, and he just said, the bullet and the ballistics are like a fingerprint. And I said, but what if the jury doesn't get that? And he said, they will get it. Do they have an expert? Does the defense have an expert? And I said, I believe they do. Well, they were on the stand today, and I thought he did a good job out of the gate, um, talking about his going to Vanderbilt and his, did you catch that? His disc resume that
Yeah,
Latrell brought up later.
yeah.
It made me laugh. So he talked about that, but then it turns out, so he's saying he's part of this group, and I'm paraphrasing, that's not accredited. And so I'm writing down, and I'm next to Kevin and Frank, Kevin and Anya's on
Kanye.
the other side, from Murder Sheet. And I wrote down this. So basically, flat Earth group, meaning like it's a group that's kind of on the cusp of like, they think outside the box in terms of what could be fingerprints. So, and I'm dumbing this down, and this is as much as I grasp, and I could be wrong. But so he's on the stand, and great testimony, I thought, with Rosie back and forth. And then, because I'm thinking, why isn't he objecting? Why isn't Latrell objecting? Like, why is this relevant? And then out comes, because the prosecution, it's James Latrell, it's of course
Stacey
Nick
Diener.
McClelland and Stacey Diener, and I think they're just a great team. All three of them are excellent, and I also think that they picked the right person for a specific witness, and I think that
Right.
that matters. It
Yes.
truly does. So this was James Latrell, and he could be soft spoken, and you could tell he's smart, and he knows what he's doing. But all of a sudden, when he raises his voice, you listen, because he rarely does.
That shocked me.
It was back and forth, and I thought Latrell did such an amazing job when he brought up another case that this guy was a witness in, and he said, "Isn't it true?" And I'm summing this up here, basically saying, "Look, you just looked at photos. That's
Right.
that's not what you said in this case in Arizona is the best way to assess this, right?"
Yeah, he looks at pictures. He doesn't even look at the real evidence. He doesn't
Yeah,
And
even
that's
get
what,
any,
he
And they're
made it.
paid experts. It happens. Look, the
right.
prosecution has paid experts too.
Yeah.
So it's on both sides. But so they say what you kind of know your expert's going to say for thousands of dollars. But it
Teddy
was
beer
the way
guy.
he went after him was like,
Yeah, I was like, dude, you're making a synopsis of Melissa Obert.
oh
Her,
my God. Well, I think I wrote to Frank during the day. I wrote, Rosie's still not over his ego bruises. He can't stand that he lost. He did an objection. First he said, Your Honor, do you want a break? And she said, no. I felt like I was watching a boxing match that she was saying, nope, no timeout. And then he said, Your Honor, she's just saying words because she was flawless. And Cheryl McCullum, Kristin, I know you know her well,
Oh yeah.
was with me that day, thank goodness, to kind of tell me what the lingo and everything that I didn't get. And she
Right.
was raving. She said, Susan, if there were cameras in this courtroom, she would be on every show. She was flawless. So I think that bothered Rosie because they spent a lot of time on her, right, Frank?
They did
Right,
the late morning with her and most of the afternoon with her when she was on
They
the stand.
talked about her a lot, right?
Yeah, and like I was saying, he was making a synopsis over her report, and I'm like, how are you going to do a synopsis of her report when you didn't even test any of the evidence yourself?
Well,
right.
I think he just wanted to clearly, and I know you know this, to tell the jury, like, don't listen to what she said.
Right.
Right. Listen to me. And
Yeah.
it's, and that's, I so agree with you and what your dad said about, it's, or was it Joey? Was it Joey Jackson that said it's the thing about, it's
Battle of the experts.
the battle of
Joey.
the experts. And a lot of times that is what it is. It comes down to, and which experts do you believe? And a lot of times they're like, we're not going to listen to either one of them. We're going to look at everything else.
Yeah, that they cross each other out, right?
And, right. And so, who knows? I mean, at this point, like I said, I mean, it's, it's, to me, I know that people are going off the rails today because of what was said this afternoon about the cell phone and everything else. And when I first heard it, I'm like, what? I got to go back and look at this. But, leave it up to Fig to put everything into freaking perspective because, I love him to death. And he, he's just spot on.
Yeah.
It was Stacey Eldridge, former FBI digital expert, right? Who said, for people who don't know, because there's no cameras clearly, but said that with Libby's phone, and that phone's a big part of the defense's case. The phone will be a part of it. And the fact that he was at a high security prison or a medium security prison with the high security prison kind of center here. So it was, the prison drove him to those confessions. It wasn't him. That's their case. Also, the bullets, junk science, that's their case. And Libby's phone, something happened with that to prove that the girls were moved, but I don't understand the logic. And the girls were moved and then brought back to the place where people are now looking and then killed. It doesn't make sense. But the phone, she said that headphones were put in, I believe it was 5:45. I wrote down the details here. 5:45 p.m. on February 13th, and then taken out at 10:32 p.m., a wire and headphones. So I don't know. Can you get in the rebuttal? Because it's the prosecution, then it's the defense's turn where we are now, and then it's the rebuttal with the state. They get the final say, closing arguments, and then it goes to the jury.
Frank made the point of remembering that way back when Cecil talked about if mud or water gets into
that port.
At that port on that phone, it can make it seem like something's in there or something connected.
That makes sense.
Come on. We know doggone well that that's very, very possible and probable.
And
who's plugging something into that phone?
Right.
At 5:45. Give me a break.
I mean, think about it. Anytime a cell phone gets wet, you're going to get a haywire in it.
Yeah. And I want to know what you guys think of this, because remember they said, like, all of a sudden, have you guys ever had that where someone's trying to get a hold of you, you're in a bad area, and then you get an influx of texts?
Right.
So that's what I always thought happened to Libby, but I didn't know.
Yeah, it did happen. Mm-hmm. Once they turned the phone back on, or whenever it was, it came back on at 4:30, whenever it was, all these text messages came
in the morning through. They got a dump of all the text messages from the family and friends that were all trying to get a hold of her.
Yeah, and I do know that, and I know that I've heard this, that the phone never turned off. So the family, so it wasn't off. It was just not. Do you ever have your phone and it's like
it was basically in a sleep mode?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the psychiatrist, the old ancient guy from the Roman Empire?
Well, I mean, talk about storied like career and education. I mean, you tell me Harvard Medical School, I'm in, and that's for most people. And this guy's about 75 with a long career and I think it was a hospital that I recognized because my sister went to Boston College. And she studied nursing. Anyway, so this guy says he specializes in solitary confinement. Imagine that. But he's testified in a lot of cases. He was knowledgeable, I thought, and likable. He seemed like someone you could trust, and he gets on the stand and just says, absolutely. And I think that the fact that Indiana has jury questions is huge, because I learn a lot from their questions, not only based on kind of how they're feeling on what side, but also really good questions. And it was, can someone be driven to that psychosis? And I hope I'm saying this right. If they're in solitary for 6 months to a year, the answer was yes. And then the question was, can they go back? I hope I'm saying this right, to where they were normal, I guess, when they're out. And the answer is yes. So, again, the battle of the experts, but I thought he came off as knowledgeable.
What really got me with him is he said that he follows the Geneva Convention rules when it comes to this stuff. And I'm thinking, hold on, the Geneva Convention. And I pulled this up just to be clarified.
Good for you. I always want to Google stuff. We can't have our phones anywhere inside.
This is what the Geneva Convention entails. The purpose of the Geneva Convention is to establish rules for how civilians and soldiers should be treated during armed conflict. Now, what has Richard Allen got to do with the Geneva Convention?
Nothing. It's absolutely a nothing burger. It shouldn't even have been brought up in court, in my opinion. But
my antennas went off as soon as he said that. I said, hold on. I was in the military. I said that word. It has nothing to do with Richard Allen.
No, it doesn't. But they're trying to make it look like he's being tortured. Did you see what Teddy said? Teddy said they can't believe Richard Allen could be the guy, but they think people were out there playing Snake on the cell phone for hours. and it's the truth. I mean, they won't believe what's obvious by the evidence, but they'll believe this convoluted conspiracy, multiple people that nobody saw kind of thing,
Well, the good news is I have faith in the jury. How can you really tell? You never can. But I'm glad they're sequestered. I'm glad they came from Fort Wayne, Indiana. That was a brilliant thought to change a venue, but they wanted to make it easy for family members to get there. That's why it's not in Fort Wayne.
Right.
But they're sequestered. And of course, now I think even more than ever, they have to be. I mean, there's so much junk around there. Even in the courtroom where we are, there's a lot of junk.
Oh, yeah.
A circus you don't want to be part of. And I have trust in the system, and I trust them, and they're asking intelligent questions.
I wonder how much the jury's paying attention to the gallery. I wonder.
I think they look around, but I don't think they know the intricacies and the nutsness
of what it is,
Yeah, because it's really, sometimes I have to exhale and think, this is about Abby and Libby. I'm not going to get down to the elementary level of someone,
Yeah.
They're sitting there and we want to sit here.
She's referring to what happened to me today.
Oh, that was rude. But I said, Frank, she's baiting you.
I know she was. And I let her have it. She didn't
tell
say
the story. You got to tell it. You got to tell it.
That happened to me on Friday. That happened to me on Friday.
Yeah.
I sat right behind Kathy Allen and got told that seat was taken.
Yeah.
I got told by the deputy sheriff that I could set any empty seat was public.
Well, this lady, she went after Ivy Push a couple of weeks ago and told her she needed to get out of that seat. The same woman. Well, we were breaking for lunch, and we can't leave the courtroom until they remove Richard Allen and take him where they needed to go to serve him lunch and everything. Well, once we were standing there in line, it was me, Susan, Aspen, the murder sheet, and a couple other people. And this damn woman, I was talking to Bella. She was right behind me, and I said, man, the defense has got their ass reamed by Latrell. And she looked at me and she said, hey, that's uncalled for. And I said, fuck you. I'm going to say what the hell I want to say in here.
Did you really say
Did you say that to her? She's baiting you.
Did you say that to her?
Yeah, I sure in the fuck did. And then I get outside, and Holman puts his hand on my shoulder. He said, just be you, Frank. And I said, I am being me, Jerry. He said, I know.
We can't get kicked out. That's what she wants.
Well, it didn't happen. So.
But I don't blame you. She targeted you. That was on purpose.
Yep. And when we got outside, boy, Susan, her dirty mouth was just going.
Don't say that in case someone watches it. Like,
it's like, man.
Like her mother. Chris Worthington went back to normal when he heard that he had a following and they'd raised $50,000 for him in a fundraiser, soon snapped him out of his psychosis.
I forgot about that.
And people what people need to realize and get through their heads, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of the defense people, they still got it in their head that he did all these confessions after he got to discovery. He did confessions before he even got to discovery.
Yep.
When was
the phone call to Mama?
Yep.
I have them in like my 5th notebook.
Yeah, so do I.
What was the date of the phone call to Mama?
You know what though, Kristin, which was telling to me, which his daughter was on the stand, Brittany, yesterday. Was that yesterday? My days at all.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Okay, so she's on the stand and I feel horrible for her. No daughter. It was the last place. She looked like it was the last place she ever wanted to be. No one ever wants to be on the witness stand, right?
Nobody wants to be in a court.
And I noticed that you could see her. She was tearing up and she was trying to hold it back. And I did catch her she was kind of shifting her eyes toward her dad, but would look away real quick.
Yeah. Like didn't want to look at him.
Right.
And there were a lot of sidebars. So I felt so bad. It's like she was sad and about to cry. And what I did notice was Kathy Allen wasn't in there. And also in the 7 confessions, Kristin, that we heard before, the 7 of them, you know how he's like, I hope that you love me. And I'm paraphrasing, but like, we could all be together in the afterlife. Never, ever, ever did I hear his daughter's name, Brittany, ever. And so my opinion, just based on what I saw, and I'm speculating, was that there is no relationship with her and the mother. She was not in the courtroom, that she really likes Richard Allen's sister, who was on the stand before Brittany. So they have a relationship. I could see her staring over at Richard Allen's sister, but not to her dad, and just to Richard Allen's sister, and the mom is nowhere to be seen. So that
November 11th, 2022 is when the first call was made to Kathy on a confession.
What about the mom?
I'm looking at it now. Hold on.
Rescue said she thought it was April the 2nd. I thought it was before that.
It is. It was in 2022. I've got it right here. Highlighted confessions from Fig Solves.
Yes.
And then I'm looking for his mom.
With his mom, obviously you have a different relationship with your mom than your wife, clearly, but the mom confessions,
March of 23.
Okay.
Is when he talked to his mom.
Yep.
At
least
what they played, right.
Well before any discovery was.
That was before discovery. And it was before he went into all this crazy, ridiculous behavior. And my point that I've been making all along, you guys, and I know you've heard me say it and say it. And my judge friend, he agrees with me. No man is going to call his mother in a calm voice, because you guys heard it.
Yeah.
He was calm. He's like, I did it. I did this. I killed them.
Why would I tell you I did it?
Why would I say I did it? And it's exactly the case. Why would you call your mother and break her like that? Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm. I know. And
you would never call your mother and tell her that. Maybe your wife, but you would never call your mother.
That'd be the last person. And she hasn't been there a while. Sadly, she fell down the stairs. She broke her nose.
Broke her nose.
I heard she's okay. Those court stairs are treacherous. But so she was in there today, and I saw him walk in. And
did she fall down the stairs going up to the courtroom?
Down.
It had to be up if you break your nose, right? Do you fall?
But I'm just saying, so the marble stairs going upstairs, oh my God, those are so
or going
scary.
down, I'm not sure. Frank may know.
Those are scary.
But so he walked in, he had a turquoise like button-down shirt on with khaki pants, and he looked over and he seemed to be like cheery today. And he's like, wow, like full house is what he was saying. Because his mom's back, it was his sister, his wife, Brittany was there.
That was yesterday.
But no, she was there today.
I didn't see her today.
You know what? I could be mixing up my days. I could have sworn I saw her.
No, I
saw her today for a short amount of time, I think.
I didn't see her. It's not like I was looking over there to see who was over there. I did see his mom, Kathy, his sister. what the lady that I call Rainbow Bright, the lady from California, Bob Mata.
His stepdad.
His stepdad was there, yes.
So he said, wow. He was like looking over, and then I saw him joking with one of the deputies. So he's very different from you guys. Even the hearing at the end of July in August, when I first saw him in person, and he looked at me, and it affected me so much. And then he's looking at the ceiling. This is a different guy. I mean, is he faking these personalities, or is he just kind of healing as we go along? I don't know. But what was telling was that October interview with Liggett and with Steve, what's his name?
Smolin.
He's such a good witness that they want him out. It's clear. They've called him like 3 times in the defense. But that
they were
interview,
trying to impeach him is what they're trying to do. They're trying to impeach him.
And he can't do it. So on October 13th, that interview I saw, and it's funny how people see different things. I watched a YouTube show. It came up on my algorithm, and this woman said she saw it. She's in court, and it was, what is her name? Lawyer Lee. She's a nice person. But it came, and she said that to her was the minute she thought he's definitely not guilty, because he seemed like a regular guy, and he seemed like a not guilty guy. Well, it was the first time I saw it, and I thought that he's capable. He sounds like Bridge Guy. So it'll be interesting to see what the jury thinks, and based on the evidence that we hear. But it's far from over. The defense may rest at the end of the week.
We're hearing, I was told today, I got a phone call that it looks like they're going to rest tomorrow, and closing arguments are going to be Thursday and Friday. And if that's the case, I'm going to book the hotel for one more day, because I am not missing that.
You have to, Frank. Don't leave me. Doesn't it look like I have a weird?
What did you think of Betsy Blair today?
Oh, I just thought they wanted to
impeach her.
No, I think they're poking holes in the timeline and saying, because I guess, and you guys may know more about this than me, when she saw what the state is saying is Richard Allen's car, that she thought, oh, that looks like my dad's car.
Oh, the Ford Comet. But she said it was backed into the CPS building. Well,
and they went to CVS and they looked, and he backs in his car.
Yeah.
That is to me, that's another thing that hasn't been exploded.
Do you think
on
after
enough.
The murders he's backed in?
Yes, he backs in his car.
Yeah.
He backs his car in to work at CVS.
But has he always, or just after the murders?
We don't know.
I don't know, but that's
do you guys
one
know
of the
any
things,
back-end car people? They drive me nuts.
That's one of the things that Liggett talks about, that he noticed him and Mullen when they went to CVS.
Do you guys ever back in
to check the car?
I don't know why that bothers me, the back-end person.
And another thing that drives me crazy, especially with Baldwin, is every time there's a witness on the stand, do I need to refresh your memory with the deposition from 15 years ago?
I hear Frank huffing.
I was like,
that these people don't remember. Do you remember?
And you know what? I was telling Kristin this today. I said, if I would have been one of them witnesses on that stand and they pulled that shit on me, I'd been like, yeah, I'll try to refresh my memory. And I'll read, I'll tell Baldwin, yeah, it says it right here, but I still don't remember saying it.
So Brad Weber was back on the stand, and I didn't. So he's in the hallway, and I said, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Because I didn't. And he goes, "It's not taken." It's not. And I thought, ooh, gosh, I didn't know who it was. And then because I thought he's kind of angry, and it felt like on the stand that they were pecking at him, like peck, peck, peck.
Oh, he does not want to be there, and he is pissed that
it didn't work. And I thought the state did a great job, from what I hear from when he was first on the stand, that it didn't work. He didn't get angry. I thought it went well for the state with him.
Well, the first day he did get angry, from what I heard, what my understanding was.
Yeah.
He got in Rosie or Baldwin's ass and said, "Look, you're over here trying to tell me when I got home from work. Remember when he came back yesterday, he said, 'Are you mad at me?' And Brad said, 'Oh, yeah.'"
You were trying to call me a liar.
But Kristin, guess what he got in, Frank? Guess what he got in? He said, "I don't know. I've had so many police," because he's like, "Did this police guy call you, or this guy?" And he's like, "I don't know." And I took a lie detector. He got that in. It's like,
yep.
And the truth is, no one was arrested. Were mistakes made? Yes. No one was arrested for more than 5 years, even after Libby took all of that on her phone. They just couldn't find the person. There is no blame. But of course, the investigation is going to have ups and downs, and they're going to look into a lot of people. It doesn't mean if you're focused on one person at one particular time that should be held against you at all.
And the other thing too is I do believe they had DNA. I believe that the DNA that they had was diluted with the girls' DNA.
Well, they even
so
said
bad.
it was diluted.
It was so eroded because there was so much DNA from the girls because it was such a bloody crime scene. And so to me, when people say, well, there was, how do you commit this crime and not leave any DNA? There were no defensive wounds. I've had people ask me, this was a knife crime. Usually when you have a crime that's committed by knife, it's close, it's personal, it's up, you know what I mean? It's up close, it's personal, and usually there's defensive wounds. So you have to ask yourself, why were there no defensive wounds to these girls? Well, that they brought up the fact that they thought that Abby, they didn't say anything about Libby, but they said that they thought Abby was bound at some point. She had duct tape.
She had remnants
and her hands, I'm thinking, were probably, and when he took them off that bridge, he could have very easily zip tied them. I mean, it's very possible.
It looked like in his jacket, Kristin, you bring up so many great points. And that was the day it was assigned to note-taking day. And so I'm in the front row and I see everything. And it's the blood splatter expert, Cicero. And it's up close of Abby and Libby. It's the most horrific day that I'll never forget. But I had to take specific notes on that day for the pool. So I'm also taking quotes and the DNA expert and what she saw and what she didn't see. And someone asked, it might have been on your show, I don't know, it was in it live, but it's like, why didn't they take anything under the fingernails? Well, they said the girls' nails were so low that there wasn't. So picture if you don't have any nail, there's not going to be anything nails.
Now, he did say it was Abby's fingernails were too short to get clippings. Yeah. They did get clippings from Libby, and they found male DNA, but there wasn't enough.
Not enough because you know why there wasn't enough, you guys?
Yeah.
Because she put her hands up to her throat. We know that they said that.
Great
and all
point.
of that and all of that blood diluted
and
the
back
male
to
DNA
Abby's
under her
hands.
finger.
You're right. So they zoom in, and Abby is like this. For those who haven't seen it, it's horrible. So her hands are like this in a sweatshirt. Almost, it's like she's cold. Okay, so it's here. And then because the autopsy, of course, there's going to be blood based on, even if they're careful. So then they show at the crime scene close up of Abby's hands like this, and they are as clean as anything. No dirt. Think about this. No blood. I mean, just as clean as if you're home like this. And they zoomed in on that. And that, right. And remnants, though, of around her mouth of they couldn't really tell what it was.
Right.
Could it have been tape? But Cicero, the blood expert, says in all of his years, his 30 plus years, has he ever seen hands clean with a neck wound? Abby's, it was this way, horizontal, and without grabbing the neck. That's our reflex. So he said that coincides with either being bound or unconscious.
Yes.
Right. I do need to read this because Fig sent it to me so I could read it to everybody. It's about the cell phone thing again.
Okay.
He says, given that Liberty German's phone likely went through the creek, it's possible that water or even some blood caused the phone to falsely detect the headphones were plugged in. iPhones are known to sometimes register a headphone connection if moisture enters the headphone jack, causing the device to become stuck in headphone mode. Once the liquid dries, it could have appeared as though the headphones were unplugged without any actual headphones having been connected at all. iPhones have sensors in the headphone jack to detect when headphones are plugged in. On older models like the iPhone 6, this detection relies on physical contact with the jack. When moisture like creek water, blood, mud enters the headphone jack, it can create a conductive path that mimics the insertion of a headphone plug, tricking the phone into thinking headphones are connected.
Wow. We need Fig as the expert. Wow.
Yeah. No,
he's good.
But I was so glad that he put that out there because, it really made me feel better to know that that was a thing and that.
Do you guys remember what is that the famous case now where Munchausen by proxy, she made her daughter believe she was sick.
Oh, yeah. She just got out of prison.
Yeah. So the reason I'm bringing it up is with that mother, and it's a horrible Munchausen by proxy mental disease. So, and they were doctor hopping is my point, until they finally found a doctor that would perform surgery on this girl who wasn't sick. So that to me, I thought of the experts today. If you find an expert that's going to figure out a way to make it work for your story, and I don't think that all the doctors are in the wrong if they believe that this girl is sick. And somehow I'm coinciding all of this together with the experts. It's if you ask around enough, they can make it work. Oh, that's headphones from Libby. Is it really?
Yeah, because when you stop and think about the fact that this phone was found underneath of Abby, underneath the shoe.
Abby's shoe, the Converse, right?
It was Libby's shoe.
Oh, Libby's shoe.
I thought it was Libby's shoe.
The Nike or the Converse? I think
Nike.
I thought it was the Nike. It was Libby's shoe underneath of her, and her phone was underneath of Abby. And so we had assumed because she had on Libby's jeans, she slipped that phone either into her pocket or into the back pocket, and it fell out. Well, if it's underneath of her, we know that the majority of blood from Abby was underneath of her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
So were you there, Frank, the days meshed together when Brian, who was it on the stand? It was Indiana State Police, the one who listened to
Harshman.
Brian Harshman. Okay.
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't there all last week.
Well, this woman behind me, bless her heart, as they say, she was coughing, and she had to step out, and I felt sorry for her. But I was finally tuned in because he was telling the story that he heard based on what Richard Allen said to Dr. Walla. And he was telling the story, and he said he was lying in wait. He watched them. He followed them on the bridge. He led them down the hill. His intent was to rape the girls. He got interrupted. He crossed the creek. He slit their throats, and he made sure they were dead so they didn't suffer. Now, that stood out to me because I'm thinking, was Abby unconscious? Like, what do you mean you made sure? Like, I don't think we'll ever know, but
that tells you that right there tells me that Abby was still alive.
But why so clean with their hands? I don't think we'll ever know the
I
final
think
moment.
she might have been unconscious, like you said.
But there was no head injuries. Could you pass out of fear? I don't know.
She could have passed out from hypothermia.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever know.
I mean, because they even said that Dr. Corey even said all the blood was absorbed by that black sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Cicero was amazing. But and it's not funny, but with the not many people understand the technology in the court. It's clear. So when Cicero stood up and he tapped it, and I thought, because I know the big board now, I'm like, oh God, it's going to zoom in. And it did. And he touched it, and it was like zoomed in to the girls. And it was just so horrible. I mean, it's just so horrible. But so that's why the families got so upset when they were showing Richard Allen and the prison and saying, for the dignity of Richard Allen. Meanwhile, we're zoomed in to the girls.
I'm like, what about the girls?
Mm-hmm.
Let me give a shout out to a couple of people real quick. Miss Laura for the $1.99 super chat. Daisy $9.99 for the super sticker, and Carrie Summers for the $19.99 super sticker. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, guys, for supporting Frank.
Gray was on last night. He's like, you didn't see my comments? I'm like, I don't see anything. I see like the three of us here. You're lucky I'm on with technology.
You need to get you a laptop.
I can't see any of the comments. I don't see anything. But I'm happy to be on. Hanging with you guys is like hanging with friends.
I think Richard Allen is the best actor that I've seen in a while. And I firmly believe that, guys. After seeing him and sitting in court with him, this guy
what surprised you, Kristin? Anything?
I think he's a master manipulator. I think he is I do not think that he's mentally ill. I believe that he may have depression, and he may have anxiety, and he may suffer from feeling horrible about what he's done.
Who doesn't have
if he does or not? But I'm just saying that from what I saw of him, when he locked eyes with me and looked at me, it was like a stare that just went through me. It was the weirdest thing I felt, because to me, I
bizarre?
felt chilled. It was bizarre. And I watched him that whole day. And every time there was a sidebar, or every time there was a break or whatever, he was constantly moving. He reminded me of somebody with ADHD who can't just sit still, because like he sits still for the most part when everything's going on in front of him. But as soon as that happens, he wants to know what everybody else in that courtroom's doing and looking. And somebody said, well, maybe he's worried that he's going away for a long time and he's mentally taking pictures of people's faces in his head.
Today, you know what I did today?
What?
While we were in line for lunch break in the courtroom, he was just standing there. I had my eyes locked on his ass, trying to get him to look straight at me. And he would not look at me.
Oh God, he looked at me. And then when I got up to leave on Friday, I left right with Aspen. Aspen got up to leave, and then Marv and I got up to leave. They made us stay at the door because I think that at that point they were still moving the jury. Mm-hmm. And so we were standing at the door, and I looked over and he was staring at me again. And that's when I said to Marv, does he know who I am? Why does this guy keep staring at me?
I have an opinion. I think he absolutely knows who you are. I think he watched everything from before the arrest. I think
that's even weirder.
Right. But I truly do believe that with Cheryl McCullum, when she was in court, I said, he's going to stare at you. Now I won't even lock eyes with him, but he does do that. And it's the new people. And I believe that he watched everything. And you know what I also think he did? He watched the 2019 presser. Because when I saw him in that October 13th interview, he said, how could you think that I would kill 2 little girls? It was almost the mimicking of Superintendent Doug Carter, certain lines like, and I care what people think, to his wife. I care what people think. And I thought back to Doug Carter, who said, what will people think when they know what you did to these 2 little girls? Just the lingo was similar. So I think he watched everything.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I thought that for a long time, even when I was still on Reddit before I came to YouTube, and we would talk about, sometimes weird people that would be, in our chats or whatever, or in our threads.
Coburger did it. Yeah.
God, is this, Bridge Guy could be in here, you guys. He could be listening or commenting.
Well, they proved that through his Google searches that he was looking for content on Delphi.
Well, his Google searches are spooky. Did you read some of those?
I did. They're spooky, and maybe some were redacted that I didn't see all of them. I think they're spooky, but I don't think they're as damaging, because think about our Google searches. It's like, but if you put everything together, if you look at the
I mean, with everything else that we know about what's going on, that's pretty weird.
It was Delphi murders, right, Kristin?
Here's a good point.
That and kidnappings. He was looking on Google for some of the, what was it, Frank? Some of the worst kidnappings.
Yeah.
And some that involved children, some that involved adults. It was weird.
And I think it said children kidnapping people, and then it said the worst thing on Netflix. Right. But nothing was like the smoking gun, so to speak.
Yeah.
Carter said it best. You want to know what we know.
And one day you will.
And that's what he was doing. Researching everything he could to find out what law enforcement knew.
Yeah. That was on point. It really was. And did you hear in one of the confessions, he mentioned even a shed? He said a shed. And remember, Superintendent Carter said something about a shed. So absolutely, he watched Kristin, and I'm sure he knew who you were, but he looks around and he locks eyes. And I think you're right that he is a master manipulator. If you think he's guilty. If he's not guilty, he's got to be the most unlucky guy. And why didn't he see Bridge Guy? Why didn't he see the other guy?
That is my biggest. When they asked,
are you Bridge Guy? He said, not if the girls took the picture. I think that he was furious, and I love this.
How would he know that the picture came from the girl's phone? Because they never released that in the beginning. They never released it.
They never told us where that picture came from. We didn't know.
Right.
They didn't tell us. There was all kinds of speculation that it came from a trail cam and this and that.
Right. I
Yeah.
remember with Mike's first press conference, Mike Patty, when we all were introduced to him, a wonderful person, wonderful
Yeah.
family. In March of 2017, that's when he said Libby took that. She had the wherewithal to take it. So in March. But I would have loved to be a fly on the wall if it is him, to say, haha, you know, they got you.
Teddy
I
said
need to give a shout out to
Teddy-
2 people real quick.
Okay.
Leslie Kingston and Carrie Summers for the donations to the Cash App. Thank you, ladies.
Awesome. Teddy just posted in chat that he said he did some restoration or demolition of the shed near the creek with his Walmart buddies.
What shed?
They're outhouses, basically.
Yeah, they're
The ones that
basically
were on Brad Weber's property.
Oh,
Yeah.
so Richard Allen said he was refurbishing sheds.
said he demolished one with his Walmart buddies.
I
That's
remember
what
talking to
said.
Teddy about that. Teddy, come back. We miss you.
He's here in the chat.
Hi, Teddy.
Oh, by the way, Susan, I got a picture sent to me today after we left and I got back and you got back to Lafayette. They have chairs lined up the sidewalk already at 5 o'clock. And
I mean,
somebody called me and said, you guys need to get here. We got your seat safe for you. And I said, I'll be there at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh, I don't think you need to be there that early.
Well, if we want seats,
That's true.
because you've seen what happened during the lunch break today.
Yeah. I mean, I swear I'm going to wake up in a cold sweat in 3 weeks. Like, all rise. It's going to be Judge Dahl.
Right.
I swear, I was like that, and I was only there for one whole day.
Doesn't she make you nervous? All rise. I'm like, ah. And you have to plan out when you have to use the restroom because you cannot use it when you're not supposed, and you can't take a sip of water. You need to be very quiet. I've been eating these mints for lunch all day.
Oh, Lord. She's sitting in the courtroom and every 5 minutes she's reaching down her purse.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her. I mean, my gosh, that's a long day with no sustenance.
And
Things get on your nerves when you're tired. It's the marker and the mints.
And
I'm
it's
driving
even-
myself crazy.
She'd have the box in her hand and put it right over to me. And I said, are you trying to tell me my breath stinks?
On a mint. And then it's hours of
Cold
various
truth.
testimony. Yeah.
Cold truth. What is she saying? I would like to know what people that have
Hey,
known
now.
him a long time have to say about this lingering stare.
Wait, say it. I can't see the quote.
It's cold truth. She said, I would like to know what people that have known him a long time have to say about the stare that he
About
has.
his lingering stare.
Yeah.
It's just unnerving, and maybe it's because I know what he's been charged with and everything.
Even if
but
he was
I
a
think
normal
he would-
guy, it's like
I think he would give me that feeling if I just met him on the street.
You know what? I honestly, this is how I feel. If he's acquitted,
don't
it ain't
say
going to
it.
be good for him. I'm
Don't
just
say it.
saying, it's not going to be good on the outside of a jail cell for him.
Well, I'm just saying and Kristin's right. The way he acted at the end of July, beginning of August was completely different now that he's in khakis and readers on his head and a linen shirt like he's at Club Med. It's very different. I think he's a master manipulator.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if he's innocent, I feel bad for the guy. He's the most unlucky guy that he never met Bridge Guy and that he happened to look exactly like the guy that Libby caught on her cell phone. But he's very different. He was looking at the ceiling and I thought, how did the wife not know this guy's nuts? How do I know? Because he's acting now completely different and normal. In that interview, October 13th, he said when the wife walked in, I know that you know that I'm not capable of this. I'm like, can you let her talk? Like, are you sure? And what's the relationship
She's
with
like,
the dog?
I don't know how to answer that question. Why
Right.
is your bullet between the girls? You never told me that you were on the bridge.
Exactly.
There's people out there now that say that Kathy doesn't believe him. So who knows?
I'm sure she was in denial. I feel for her. I always think back, Kristin, like you do to BTK. And I know that Carrie Rawson had no idea. And,
Right.
and I think, though, when people say, come on, it was a small town, it's Delphi, you saw Bridge Guy, denial is a strong thing. And when
Oh,
that
yeah.
second sketch came out, it's like, oh, thank goodness it's not him. That looks like an 18-year-old or what have you in 2019. So I don't want to say that if you know a guy since 7th grade, you're not going to think he's capable of murdering.
Oh,
two
I
girls.
love Gary Mercado. I mean, if you guys haven't heard of him, you guys need to go look him up.
Who is it?
Gary Mercado. He is a psychologist that's world renowned. He studies these killers, and he is
His YouTube channel. Oh,
yes, Gary Mercado.
Oh,
I know you
yes.
know who he is. I know you know who he is.
He's excellent.
He is absolutely excellent. And oh my gosh, listen to what he has to say about these guys. Yeah. Yeah. Louise brought him up, but yeah, he's always on with Chris is it Chris McDonough? Chris
I know who you're thinking of.
You know who I'm talking about from the interview room, I think it's called.
Yes, from the interview room.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they're amazing, both of them, and they've got a lot of experience, and I hold a lot of what they have to, a lot of weight to what they have to say.
Do you know what I always want to know, and I don't think we ever know, is like why? With Brian Harshman, who was on the stand at the hearing at the end of July, who said not only in the confessions does he say how, he says why. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear why. And if what I assume, which we heard, which was it was sexually motivated, but I always want to know why. Like, why do you wake up one day and decide this? Did something happen to you when you were younger? Or are you born this way? Nature, nurture. I remember asking, who did I ask? Anne from, bear with me, my brain's a little fried. From, my gosh, help me out here. Anne from,
And
I interviewed her. She was on the stand for the Menendez brothers. She's like the world-renowned, amazing.
Oh, she's the
yes.
Yes. Oh, good Lord.
Someone Google it.
Is it Catherine Ranslin?
No, it's Dr. Ann Burgess.
Ann Burgess. Yes.
My
She's
gosh.
on with Gary. She wrote a book with Gary Mercado. And she and him and Chris are all part of the cold case something or other.
Anne is amazing, and so that Netflix show is based on kind of where she got her start. Now she teaches at Boston College. She always has for a while. She's amazing. She testified at the Menendez first trial on Eric's behalf and believed him from the start. But I asked her that because she's a chapter in my book to say, hey, this guy was 44 when he first killed 2 girls. Is that normal? And she said, no, but it can happen. And then I said, is it nature or nurture? And she said, that's the question that everyone wants to know. And we don't really know. Because I know my son, Jack, who's 8, you wonder, like, how do you turn into that? How do you turn into the Jeffrey Dahmer? How do you turn into that?
Yeah.
Is it something that happens to you or you're born that way? I don't know if we'll ever know.
I think what happened to him that day, and I said this before, I'm not convinced at all that he wanted to go out there and actually kill 2 girls. I think he wanted to go out there and assault 2 girls. Mm-hmm. And that's what he attempted to do. And then he got spooked by the white van and by Brad Weber. And when he got spooked, he was like, oh my God, I have to kill them or my whole life is going to come
crumbling down
around me because everybody's going to know. And he didn't want everybody to know about the secret life that he lives in his fantasy world. And he didn't want anybody to know that. And he actually is a lucky bastard. Sorry, because think of it. 5.5 years, he lived a normal life, going to work every day, running the CVS, doing his thing.
I think it slowly drove him crazy.
Guy was behind him or next to him on the counter, and that was him.
I think it slowly drove him crazy. Maybe it didn't make him feel the way he thought it, but covering the Golden State Killer, and before that he was known as the rapist. I forget what he was called at the time, but before Golden State Killer, because it was so many years, he had a full mask on. This guy works at CVS. I think he's a master manipulator and is lying again and acting like, oh, I got spooked. Therefore, I'm not as bad as you think I am. I think his intent was always to kill because you're the CVS guy in a town of less than 3,000 people.
Right.
If it is him, again, if it is him.
It's him.
Yeah, he did say that he went and lived his life. He told that to
I know.
Walla.
You talking about the South area rapist?
Yeah. Say it again. Sorry.
South area rapist.
Yeah.
That's the Golden State Killer.
He
Yeah.
had a full mask on. Remember that?
Thanks, Constantine, for that.
Like a bank robbery mask. So this guy, I think he fantasized about it. And I'm quoting Paul Holes here, who said, "I believe, Susan, after visiting the bridge and knowing he's a local and going down there, I believe he lived so close that he fantasized about this for years. Years. And maybe even went down there to do it for years."
I mean, who leaves their parents' house in Peru, of all places, and just drives home and picks up a 6-pack, goes and dresses ridiculously for the weather,
and there was stuff in that jacket. He was ready.
Takes his gun that he never carries because he told the police, "I never carry my gun." Takes his gun, takes the box cutter. Yeah. What was his intent that day? It wasn't to look at a stock ticker and look at fish.
No.
I need to answer this, Laura. They haven't said anything about his Google searches in court.
Not yet. I think that's coming with the rebuttal from.
Oh, and CJK wanted to clear us, me and Susan, to clear up about Brittany being on the stand. She did say she loved her dad, and she would never lie for her dad.
This was the questioning, and maybe they spoke with the judge on a sidebar beforehand. It was very simple. It's, "Sorry to ask you this. Did your father molest you? No. Do you love your father? Yes. Would you lie for him? No."
Right.
Barbara McDonald tweeted out that she said that she did not love her dad.
Then she redacted, and
then she went back and fixed it. But she tweeted that. And then she had to go back and correct it.
Because in his confessions, he said, "I'm sorry for molesting Brittany."
Yep.
Kevin, a name was in there. Chris.
His sister, Chris, Kevin.
So the sister got on the stand. Same question.
Yep.
Who's your brother? Did you grow up with him in the house? And she talked about his military service. They have the same mom, different dads. Do you love your brother? Did your brother molest you? No. Do you love your brother? Yes. Would you lie for him? No. So similar.
Yeah.
This is from the confessions.
Right. I'm going through the chat.
But I couldn't see him. I wanted to see his reaction when Brittany was
well, when I was watching him, he was basically slouched in the chair, kind of his head tilted back a little bit and kind of looking at her. I couldn't see his front of the face, but just the position he was sitting, I could tell he was staring right at Brittany.
There was a
Brittany kind of looked to the side and move away.
Gibbo says, "Frank, can you clear up?" Hold on. Sorry, you just moved it. Sorry, Frank, can you clear up about the juror allegedly shouting out in court?
I heard this.
It did happen.
It did?
It did not happen. It was Rosie. When Luttrell was asking the judge for him to answer the question yes or no, and what this guy would do, instead of saying yes or no to the question, he would go like he was reading off an essay. This real long answer, and Luttrell was getting sick of it. And he's like, "I just want a yes or no question." And then Rosie goes, "Just let him answer the question." It was not a juror, because if a juror would have outbursted like that, there would have been a recess.
You'd never see her again. Gone.
Oh yeah,
the juror would have been gone.
Gone. Yeah, they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to have those kinds of outbursts.
Right.
Who was on the stand, Frank? If you know when that happened,
it was that ballistic expert.
Oh yeah, then no, it didn't happen. But that's what you get with no cameras in the courtroom. A lot of rumors, right?
And you got to remember, if he's trying to, after the fact, he's trying to manipulate, and he's confessing to shit he didn't do. He may have confessed to these assaults of, Brittany and Chris and Kevin and all these other things that he did. And maybe that part's not true. Maybe he fantasized about doing it.
That's what I was crossing my mind. What if he was fantasizing about this stuff?
Or did he make the true confessions to his mother and his wife, and then the attorneys got hold of it and said, "Start
exactly
confessing about everything."
Yep.
Start saying you shot them in the back. Start saying things that aren't true. He said at one point, "I killed my grandchildren." He doesn't have grandchildren, so it's hard to determine. But I think you nailed it, Kristin. He's a master manipulator.
I believe that he intended to shoot him now after you think about it, because he said something happened with the gun to where he dropped around. What if he was trying to shoot it and it jammed, or it was a misfire?
I had a question. Yeah,
think
I
he wanted
wondered
to
about
spare
that.
them.
I wondered about that too, but I have a question for both of you.
Mhm.
And this was asked of one of my friends who's a detective. I was talking to him about this case this morning, and he actually deals with cell phones and that kind of stuff. And he said, have they accessed Richard Allen's cell phone data
I asked that
records
today.
Yeah,
from
I'm looking at that question
2017?
right now.
And he said to me, don't let anybody tell you that you can't access burner phone data, because you can.
Oh.
But I'm like, could you do it in 2017? And he's like, yes, but not to the ability that we have today.
Didn't he have
But
like
you could
15
still
phones?
get it. What?
Which I get. I keep my old phone, so I understand that. But he had a lot.
But they had his MEI number. So if they had the IMEI number for the phone, they should be able to tell if that phone was anywhere in that vicinity.
What if he left it at home? Could you see the cloud?
I think they
who's
probably would be
texting
able to
who?
tell that.
I believe he used a burner phone, honestly.
Or Kathy's phone. I don't know
I
how
think
many
he had
phones.
a burner phone. I mean, the guy had a
What is a
shitload of
burner
phones.
phone? I know that's an
Where you
ignorant-
don't have to register it in your
You
name.
go to Walmart and you buy a phone and
and it works immediately.
and you use
Yes.
Cricket, or you use some weird, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
and you think
it's
even
not,
if I toss it in the
It's
water,
a prepaid.
or
It's a
dumpster,
prepaid phone that you don't have to register in your name. Is what a burner phone is.
yeah.
can I
you don't
toss it in the
register.
dumpster and no one
Yes.
will ever know?
Deb wants to know, does he have more than one sister? As far as we know, he doesn't, because we've only seen the one in court.
And I thought she came off as very likable on this.
Yeah, I did too. We're not talking about profiting them in here, guys.
But I'm just saying, if you could, that's a question that he had. That was a question for me. He's like, where's his phone data? They should be able to prove, was there a phone out there they couldn't identify?
I know.
That could very well be the burner phone.
I'm sure they looked into it, right? I would love to know.
Well, you would hope so.
No, well, you're right. But I mean, that to me is, but 2017, what was that like? Of course, everyone had a cell phone. He said he was looking at the stock ticker. So if you have
I just think that the cell phone, True Crime Web, Steve has talked to us about this, that the cell towers back in 2017 in Delphi were not, I think they have another cell phone tower now that they didn't have then.
They do.
And so it wasn't as good a coverage. And that's why things bounced around and made it seem like you were at the high school when you were at the bridge.
Yeah, and
you know
Kristin,
what I mean?
Taylor Swift was in town. I feel like she's been on this tour forever. But in
She was
Indiana,
there this Saturday when I was there in Indy Saturday
and
night.
I took a screenshot of this because she had connection problems in Indiana. I know that's neither here nor there, but it just made me think like this. Think of the team she has. I'm thinking like, I don't think the service was available. And I feel like, not being an expert clearly, that's why all of a sudden Libby got an influx of text messages. I don't know how I'm tying that to Taylor Swift, but hey.
I'm not a fan.
Oh, I love Taylor.
Shake it off, shake it off. Well, my 15-year-old daughter loves her, so.
Oh, I love her.
I
saw her when she was 16 years old here locally.
Was she still country music then, or no?
I'm a huge country music fan.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. So when I saw her, my daughter and I went to see her, and yeah, she was great.
I'm dating myself here, but when I went to Arizona State, that's where I went to college.
Oh my God.
Talk about this.
This is absolutely hilarious.
Well, you gave me the year you graduated from high school. I mean, come on.
So I loved Arizona State, but that's how I got into country music my freshman year there. I grew up in New Jersey. New York at the time didn't have a country music station. Didn't. So all of a sudden I'm like Denim and Diamonds, line dancing. I came home, my sister's like, what happened to you? I'm like, country.
I love country music, but that is hilarious about you being from ASU, because my husband went to U of A.
Oh,
and my daughter was born in Tucson, so we are huge Wildcat fans.
U of A, ASU, yeah. U of A dominates. At least they did when I was young.
They are garbage now.
No, they're not. They're not garbage.
Football, they are.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
They might be in
football.
Who do you like,
Frank? Who do you? Who's your favorite?
They're not
I'm Notre Dame all the way. I am
Notre Dame.
Yeah, oh
They're not
yeah.
in basketball,
They haven't
buddy.
been good since Rudy.
Oh, they're going this year.
I'm teasing.
IU is ranked 8th in the nation now in football.
Well, there's 7 teams above that. Now I'm teasing. I'm just teasing.
Arizona just won one of their first games, and it's not a big game, but they just won it.
Big in the house, guys.
U of A won 93-60, I think it was.
Figs
And
in
I'm
the
going
house,
to
guys.
date myself one more time with the story. Jordan Sparks, who won American Idol.
I remember that.
I went to Arizona State with her father, Felipe Sparks, who ended up going pro in the Giants. He was a senior when I was a freshman. Isn't that weird? And he said to me, Susan, because he was friends with a friend of mine, he said, my daughter can really sing. Fast forward, Jordan Sparks.
Hey, guys, give a shout out to Fig.
Hey,
Hi, Fig.
To fuck around and find out, Fig.
Hey, Fig.
Fig,
So
you should
glad
be
you're
here. You should be here and line up on
Hey,
the rat
Fig,
race.
matter of fact, let me send him the link. I'll have him up here if he wants to come up here.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be awesome. I haven't seen him for a while, so it'd be great.
It's so
Send
funny.
you the link, Fig.
I think
Check
about
your
the
email.
sequestered jurors. Don't you? Like, they don't have a phone. They can't talk to family unless a deputy's there. So I do believe they're taking it seriously. Back to the case. I truly do. Do you think that?
Oh no, I absolutely do.
And Kristin, yeah.
When I watched them, and I tried to keep an eye on all of them and kind of get my feel for them, and the guy in the back on the end is taking copious notes. That guy,
And he's scanning the crowd.
Yeah, he's paying attention to everything. But I think that
who do you think the foreman is?
I believe it's going to be the guy on the top row on the very end, the closest to the door.
I see that, but I think it's the guy in the bottom level.
Right below him?
Yes, the older
One of
gentleman.
those two. I think it's one of those two.
You think it's him or who, Frank?
The two guys on the end closest to the door. One up top and the one on the bottom.
I see.
Fig, send you to your email if you want to come up, bud.
Or the tech guy in the middle. The tech guy, the younger guy, he asks all the genius questions on tech.
Man, I tell you what, when the guy, who was it where there was like 12 questions that were, who was it was on the stand? Was it?
Oh, it was ballistics. It was the.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, there was like 12 to 13 questions from the jurors. I was like,
and you know what's so funny about all this
ones.
questioning from the jury? I was talking to Glenn about this, my judge guy, and he was like, in the state of Illinois, that is not allowed. First of all, let me get that out there.
Georgia either, I don't think.
You cannot ask questions from the jury.
I think
he thought he was floored when I told him that was going on. And he said, well, at least she's being diligent and looking at the questions to make sure that they can actually be asked before they're being asked.
Good point.
But because he's like, it's jury. He thinks it's a bad thing. He doesn't think it's good for any case.
Well, he might be right. I like it. So imagine you go back and you have all this stuff and you forget your questions. There's so much to remember. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought that was really interesting because I never had heard of it before.
I never heard of it either.
And I was like, what? They can ask questions of the witness? What the heck?
I said that to Anya
that
today.
was new to me too, because when I was a foreman back in the early 2000s on a C felony intimidation case, and she said if the jury's got questions, just write them down, give them to the bailiff, and take them to the judge. I was like, when did they start doing this?
Yeah,
I like it so you don't have so much to remember. Like when you're back there deliberating, I think it cuts down on that too. Like, oh, I got this answered, with the notes, and I don't know, but I take what Kristin's judge friend says because he's obviously more involved and could say. Does he say why he doesn't like it? Because it could tell the way they're leaning, maybe.
He feels that they don't know enough to ask some of the questions that they may be asking. And he goes, and it's too easy for jurors to pretend or feel like they're in LA law and they're trying to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he asked me what kind of questions were being asked. And I was telling him that I thought some of the questions the jury was asking were poignant and very well thought out and, questions that I would have. And he said that was good. His feeling is, what he told me, because he's taught law for years here.
Mhm.
And so he's, you know, he really knows the law. And he said he would like to see the judicial system in this country changed to where we don't use juries anymore, and that we have a panel of 3 to 5 judges, perhaps.
Bench
Because
trial. It's called a bench trial.
juries are, he said, it's most judges do not like to have.
There's this woman I follow on YouTube where she says, shoot, why can't I remember her name? She's great. And she says there should be professional jurors who are skilled. Like imagine if she uses an analogy or example of, imagine they have us fixing cars. Like we don't know how to do it. Like in terms of being an expert on DNA and an expert, like it's a lot to put on them. And if you had professional jurors, I don't know, but she convinced me the more she elaborated on that. I don't know, but yeah, it is interesting that it's your peers who decide your fate, but they're focused. It should make everyone feel good. Obviously, no cameras in the courtroom. They're taking notes. They're engaged. Because I've seen other cases, or I've heard from someone in the courtroom, like with Jodi Arias, Casey Anthony, that you can lose the jurors at times.
Oh, absolutely. And he said it happens all the time. And he goes, and if you get a rogue juror, and I asked him, I said, well, what does that actually mean? And he said, if you get a rogue juror on a jury, that's a juror that comes in and immediately assesses what they see. A lot of times it's just what they see. They may look at the defendant and be like, this guy's innocent. And that's it. And that's their stand. And no matter what they say, no matter what they hear, they tune out. They tune everything out. And he said, and those are the jurors that hold out. Those are the jurors that won't deliberate. They won't. And he goes, I used to get messages all the time from juries, you know, telling me we've got a problem because we have this one juror that won't listen to us. They won't. What do we do? Because, you know, they really do try not to have hung juries, and they give them every opportunity to work it out. And
the judge will be like, go back in. Yeah.
Go back in. You're not going home. Yeah. Go back in. And this is what you need to do. And they'll give them instruction again, and they'll tell them this. And yeah,
you know, it's confirmation bias. And I have a quick story. I was at my son's basketball game, and I looked down, someone was taking the score, and I looked up, and I thought they were the different scoreboard. I thought they were losing. So everything in my mind, I thought my son looked sad. I thought, and it's down there. And my husband's like, we won. I went, what? Because everything in my head was pointing to that they lost. So that's a stretch, but it's confirmation bias on what you believe. And I try to not have that. You bring in.
It's really hard. It's so hard. I've done so many live streams over the years in this case about confirmation bias. And most people don't even know they have it. They don't even know that they have it.
And I'm open to know that I had it. And Teddy, if he's still on here, he said he came in thinking one way and he learned. I said, you would be an excellent juror because you listen to all the evidence, then make that decision. Because I'm sure we've all had it, confirmation bias. Like, remember with the Koberger case before he was in custody? And I was like, it's that ex-boyfriend of this person. And because you're seeing things online. No. So it's just wait for the evidence and see. And that's what we're doing in court.
I seen it, Laura. Thank you. She wants me to play a video about jurors on here, and I can't get it from my phone to my laptop.
Is this Laura? Who is it?
She's in the chat. She's been up in the courthouse. Remember that day she went to McDonald's that morning and brought all the hash browns and the ham warmers? That's Laura. Yeah. That's Laura.
I know Laura.
I'm reading through the chat, guys.
I feel so kind of embedded, if you will, in this case, that like with no kids around, it's a little weird. I'm getting into the final stretch, but we can't give up.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've got word that possibly they're going to end their case tomorrow. Then we got the closing arguments Thursday and Friday. And I said, if that's going to be the case, I've got to book the room for one more day.
You should, because my daughter said to my husband, like, oh, it's all right. She's only been gone 2 weeks. She's like 3 weeks. So I'm like, oh, God, guilt. But we're at the home stretch, and I'm fortunate that I could be here and that I can figure out the lines. And I don't mind Judge Gull kind of taking control of our courtroom. It's just surreal. But you meet so many like-minded, really nice people here who are there to support the families.
You know, that's the big thing, you know, the families and everything that they're going through, because at the end of the day, no matter no matter what happens here, and I said this at the beginning of this case.
Steve in the house, guys.
Hey, True Crime Web. Before this case got into court and he'd already been arrested, I said, there's not going to be a winner. This isn't like a sporting event, you guys. Nobody wins in a murder trial. Nobody
said
wins.
That to me. There is no justice for
there's no justice.
You might get the guy that committed the crime, but there's actually no justice because you can't bring him back.
You can't bring them back, and nothing that they can do to Richard Allen is going to be enough.
Yeah, enough. Right.
Remember in the confessions, he's like, I want to give the families my Bible.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh. For what reason is
they
that?
Don't want the Bible. Yeah.
True Crime Web says psychopaths may not act out every thought or fantasy. Triggered psychopaths have volumes of evil fantasies and acts never act upon.
Thanks, Steve.
That's a great point. I don't want to run out of.
Do you know who True Crime Web is, Susan?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure. Wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's
of course
Steve.
I do. I'm plugging in.
That's Steve. And
my algorithm's all with the great guys. Yeah. Hey, Steve. I'm just going to plug in.
Hey, Brandon, you can keep changing your name on here. You're going to get banned every time, dude.
Why? What's he saying? I can't see the comments.
Oh, he's a defense daddy that's in here trolling.
All right.
He's going by some weird name.
Before I leave here, I'm going to be Steven Spielberg with the lighting.
That's funny.
I'm running out of batteries. I don't know what's happening, but
oh well.
I wish
we're
I could
just
see
glad that we get to see your face.
But yeah, we're getting going on an hour and a half, guys, and I've got to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know about you, Susan, but I ain't missing.
No.
What happened at lunch today, I couldn't believe when we walked out and there was about 30 or 40 people down there waiting in the line, and we knew it was all defense people.
You guys know that the defense attorneys have told them, you know that, right? They've told them it is imperative that he have family members here to support him. The jury has to see this. You know, they've told them that. And we need, I don't know that they told them to have the protesters outside. I'm not going to go that far, but I will tell you, I mean, I know what I think about that, but I'm, you know.
Do you know what Nancy Grace said that's different from Atlanta? She looked over, she goes, oh no, the defense is too close to the jury.
Gail Hurd says, thank you for the $2 super sticker, Gail. She said, so KK isn't going to testify. Judge Gold made that very clear yesterday when they relieved the jury and Baldwin stood up and tried to bring third party right back into it. She said, oh, no. We done went over this 1,000 times.
1,000 times, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out, she said, if there's proof, if anything is connecting them to the crime scene, bring them in. So it's not
right.
Like if there's anything.
So we didn't see any of the inmates that they sent motions to transport. We didn't see any of those guys.
Because
but
they
remember,
don't have
they had that.
There's no connection, you guys. They can't.
But they did have motion to transport. I remember in that.
Yes. Keegan, Jesse James, and I can't remember the other one. Chadwell, yeah.
So you're sure they're not calling? Because I would see them not implicating Keegan, but just having him there to blur the lines. It'll be, or is it a definite no? I don't know.
I thought they would bring him in because they would have brought him in and let him testify outside of the jury just to get him on record.
No, they're not going to. She's not going to allow it. There's no nexus. There's no reason for them to be there. You can't just throw these people out and say, well, James Chadwell, did this horrific crime in Lafayette, and he liked to take photographs on bridges. Really? The Martians could have come down from Mars and did the crime too. Come on, people.
That's
not how the law works.
CJK is asking Susan, will you repeat what you said about what Nancy Grace said, please?
Oh, sure. So Nancy came into court, and it's funny because she has such a wonderful team, but they were like, can you get her in? We heard it's tough. I'm like, she has to come to the front door. They open at 8, like around 7:40. She was there, and she was so kind to everyone. So I bring her in, and she sits down next to me, and it's great to get her take because she's looking around. I said, does this look different than, the Atlanta courtrooms, Fulton County, whatever county she's been in or used to being in? And she said, oh, no, that's not good. this would never fly in Atlanta. It was that the jury, she believes, are too close to the defense attorneys, like in proximity. But
Right.
it's a small courtroom.
Well, you look at
Yeah.
Baldwin. What does he do every time that he's got a witness? He goes and stands right at the end of the jury box. Do you ever notice that?
Yeah, I did. But Latrell started doing the same.
Yep, he sure did.
Now, Laura just texted me.
If anybody wants to hear the interview with Nancy Grace, Susan, Gray Hughes, and Cheryl McCollum, I posted the link. It's not the video. It's on Spotify on my Facebook wall. If you guys want to listen.
She goes after some people. You guys should listen.
Yeah, I listened to it last night, and boy, Nancy was, woo. I thought she was going to have a coronary on live.
Right. I'm always afraid. But once she focuses on, well, she always does the right thing. But I think that I sent her clips, and so did Anya and Kevin, to get kind of versed on the horribleness that's out there, because even I had just heard of it at the end of July. It was like, what? This is happening? Are these people nuts? They are. And there was a guy on there, something Knight, who was accused, who wanted to blow up the Abby and Libby Memorial Park. It's just gross. But anyway,
Joe,
if anyone could take him on, it's Nancy.
Apparently your video or whatever it is on YouTube now. According
it is?
Stephanie.
Okay. Thanks.
But
I'm looking forward to closing arguments if we wanted to wrap this up, because I think Nick's
absolutely.
gonna.
Closing arguments are going to be huge. Let's hope that Nick has enough time, because closing arguments are tough. You know,
He'll be on it.
You know, he's going to have been working on this all along. They all would have been writing down, you know, we need to make sure that we talk about this,
emphasize there's a certain,
and put it all together. He's going to put it all together.
People underestimated him, and he's nailing it across the board.
Oh yeah. CJK wants to know, another question for Susan is, how can we get more of the Shady Channel's information to Nancy?
Ooh, send it to me or Frank.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that Nancy's been watching all these fools. I'm sure of it.
Send it to me.
Because she was playing clips from True Crime Design.
It's Susan K.
Oh my God.
She
so deserves to be sued. What she did to this family and to Kelsey is just horrific.
Yeah, I mean, even if it is for clicks, which I'm sure it is, it's disgusting. Obviously, clearly, I know I don't have to state that, but
she was the very first one that used I don't know if she used AI or she drew them herself, but she got a copy of the crime scene photos, and she actually drew out the crime scene photo and posted it on her.
And drew them and posted it.
Well, Nancy said this. She goes, I'm torn between calling them out because it may get them more followers, but she said it has to be done, and she did it. And you know what? When I saw her walk into that courtroom and Mike did a double take, his eyes lit up. And he said it's been long days, because they know her from CrimeCon, and that family connected with Nancy. They have through the years, and I so appreciated her being there.
But we're getting close to, we are at an hour and a half, guys. And
that's Frank's like, we're wrapping it up, guys.
Yeah, me and Susan have got to be up early. I don't know about Susan, but I'm going to be up to make sure that we have seats tomorrow, because these last 3 days is going to be
imperative. Yeah.
Very imperative to us.
We'll be thinking of you, Kristin. We'll give you updates.
Yes.
Thank you. Because I'm going to be waiting.
I call her every time we go on break.
He does. He's so good about calling me when he gets a break.
I found you guys through my algorithm, thank goodness. And then I saw Tara in your chat, and then I was like, I love these guys.
Well, we love you, and you're amazing, and I'm so glad that you guys and Aspen are all there together, because what a conglomeration of wonderful human beings. That's all I can say about you guys. And I feel so blessed. Nancy, I have watched you for years. Susan, I've watched you for years. And the cases that you've covered and stuff. And so I knew that where your integrity was and where your integrity laid. And believe me, it's not with the lady who stole your phone.
And Robert asks, is it true we can't line up until 7? Yes, it is true. We can't line up until 7 a.m.
Only because of the election.
Yes, we can't use the ramp until after tomorrow. But
it took them long enough to figure that one out, didn't it, though? Really? You know what I mean? When I left on Friday night, when we walked out, there was a couple of deputies that walked out and said, look, guys, you can't block this ramp like this. I mean, because they had chairs set up. I wondered how long it was going to take before.
They cleared it out today at the first break. I went outside to call Kristin and smoke a cigarette, and WTHR Channel 13 lady was right there, had 3 chairs already at the front door at 10 something this morning.
I joked that it was Lord of the Flies, and it really is.
God.
But ladies, greatly appreciated that you guys came
on. And on this note, Becky Petty is so kind, and so is Tara. They deliver food to that line.
They brought a chili, a huge thing of chili on Thursday night to everybody.
Friday night, I was talking to Tara. She went to McDonald's and spent over $100 to buy people food in that line that night.
They're so kind.
They are so kind. I mean, just absolutely gems of people. And then we've got these scumbags out there, running them through the
How do you like when Becky came to us before court started and she said, boy, I don't believe I have so much power to make sure everybody comes and sits in with our family, the whole courtroom. And I just looked at her and she said, yeah, they're saying that I'm the one that started all this. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
I know you guys don't have any haters really, and I can't see the comments if you do.
Oh, I've got haters like you.
Oh, trust me, they're making videos about me already because I went off on Andrea Burkhart on Saturday.
But I just want to say, take a moment and a pause to think if you were in a situation where you saw autopsy and crime scene photos and you're going through the ultimate hell and the girls are never coming back. Just think of that before you're posting any hate. I don't know if this is going to affect it, but it's like, come on.
I want everybody to do me a favor in the chat. Since this case is coming to a wind, everybody, please, before you go to bed, say a great big prayer for the family because they need it right now.
It's draining for them.
Yeah, it's very draining, So, but once again, ladies, thank you so much for.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
Susan, I will see you tomorrow. Kristin.
Good night, everyone.
I will call you tomorrow, Kristin. Love you guys.
I love you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.